Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Boss Rush Spotlight Podcast, the developer and creator interview series by Boss Rush. I'm your host, Stephanie Klimov, and today I have CEO and co-founder of Perfect Random, an indie studio hailing from Sweden, Anton Albiin. Hi.
Hi, glad to be here.
Yes, thank you for making it. If you want to maybe give a couple second spiel about who you are, and then we'll kind of just get right to it.
Yeah, so my name is Anton, and I am the CEO of a little indie studio. We're called Perfect Random, and we make our first title. It's SULFUR, which is releasing now as we're recording this next week, so October 28th. And it's been a 3-year ride, and it's looking to be be an exciting thing to release, actually.
I was going to say it's all building up to this moment, so
Yeah.
we'll get into that. First, I like to break the ice with the gauntlet, a couple rapid fire questions, just to have a little bit of fun. So, for me, it's in the morning. I think for you, it's probably mid afternoonish. But what is
Correct.
your
Yeah.
ideal form of caffeination? What powers you through game development and all that stuff?
So since I'm Swedish, we drink really strong coffee, like
Nice.
drip brewed coffee.
Oh,
I think we're second globally to the Finns, who drink the most coffee per capita, per person. It's like 5 cups a day or something, and we make it really strong. So like, yeah, it's really hard to find proper coffee in the United States if you're Swedish.
yeah, no, and me hailing from the States, I'm from New England, so Boston, and our primary corporation is Dunkin' Donuts, and we also have Starbucks. And
Right. I
I
love
don't
Dunkin'
know,
Donuts though. It's I love that stuff.
I do love them, but as I grow older, I develop, I don't know, I just want to have good quality.
Right.
Sometimes you don't really get the best quality. Quick side story: I went to a Dunkin' Donuts and I asked for a cappuccino, nice cappuccino.
Yeah.
I don't think the person knew what a cappuccino was, because all I got was, I think, just iced coffee with all the flavoring at the bottom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
Um,
yeah, we're quite snobby about all that stuff since like 20 years ago. I think the latte trend started, and that became
mm,
like a very, I don't know, hipster before we had the word hipster, but like latte dads were walking around with their strollers and their kids and whatever. There was a lot of like memes about coffee drinkers the past
mhm.
20 years in our culture, and we drink a lot of coffee, so really strong. So coffee is my answer to that for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
When do you tend to be most productive? Are you a morning bird or a night owl, or are you
At
just kind
this
of,
time, yeah. So
yeah?
in the afternoon, I think like I'm a night owl, so I start functioning around like in the afternoon sometime, and then I will work till bedtime.
All right, awesome. Now, you are a CEO of a developing studio for games. How about for you? What are your favorite either kind of games, your favorite genres that you like to play?
So I love like difficult games or like mechanically like interesting games. So action games, I would say I grew up with the Nintendo Entertainment System, that stuff. So like Mega Man and Zelda and these kind of games. But in recent years, there's been a lot of roguelikes. Dark
Mm.
Souls is my favorite series of all time. And so a lot of that type of interesting, a lot of high stakes when you play. I play a lot of Dota 2 as well.
Okay.
With my colleagues. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at the history of, for example, the original Zelda and the Mega Man series, where it, especially coming from a more, if you speak into a younger gamer or more modern gamer, they don't realize like how precise and technical it can be. Maybe they might get frustrated at it because they're not used to taking the time and learning and improving. But it makes for excellent gameplay as long as it's good quality gameplay. I understand that. Whereas, I'm a huge Zelda fan, and I'm not saying modern Zelda games aren't good, because I'm still a Zelda fan. I'm playing Echoes of Wisdom, but let me tell you, comparing playing Echoes of Wisdom versus the challenges of playing the original Zelda, it's definitely different. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
different style.
I've been more and more fond of the original, the very first Zelda, the past years, the more like I go back to it, that it has all the kind of the qualities that Breath of the Wild had as well. Um,
Yes. Mhm.
but like it's an open world game. You can just go anywhere. You can go to the wrong place, and you're not strong enough, and stuff like that. It has a lot of. You could improve that game a lot, but it still holds up surprisingly well.
Definitely does. Yeah, it definitely had that open world before open world became, well, the way it is
Yeah,
today.
yeah, definitely, yeah.
Nice. What do you think is the most underrated game today? Or one of the what's considered an underrated game for you?
Oh, that's a good question. For a long time, I thought like Earthbound was a really underrated game.
Mhm.
But I mean, the past 10 years have shown with Undertale and like
Oh,
the cult following of that game. I'm not alone in that. So
mhm.
if I'm not alone thinking that it's an underrated game, is it really underrated anymore? I don't know. It was
Oh,
at the
yeah.
time. It was not appreciated enough at the
Mhm.
time. Um, and then there's a bunch of like I was a Sega kid, so I had
Mhm.
a Dreamcast, and
Mhm.
that kind of entire generation of Sega games are there's a lot of gems there that people are not
Yeah.
exploring enough. Power Stone, like a fighting brawler game for
Um,
Dreamcast that nobody
yeah.
played. So a lot of games like that. I also love Pugsy for the Sega Mega Drive. Do you know
Bugsy, man,
about it?
I haven't heard that name in a that title in a long time, but I
Yeah.
have heard that title. I'm like, Bugsy, okay,
So
that rings a
it's a
bell.
2D platformer, as most games
Yes.
of the time, but it has like physics mechanics. So you solve puzzles with physics,
Mhm.
and but it's a 2D platform game with like cool gear, and you can like attach things and fly, and it's just like super cool. And nobody played it. It's like one of those like
Mm.
Traveler's Tales, Psygnosis games that were supposed to be Amiga and Sega and Super NES, but never happened for the Super NES version for
Mhm.
multiple reasons. Also, it's kind of a boring protagonist. It's just an alien with
Yeah.
no personality. So I can see why it didn't really hit off that well. But I loved it, and I still love that game so much. Great music too.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about, I guess, today is there's a lot of nostalgia for retro things now. Retro is in, I guess, which is kind of sad because, for example, it was a Zelda example where for me, an older Zelda would be like the OG Zelda, but
Right.
modern gamers like, oh, Wind Waker is retro. I'm like, no, no,
Yeah.
it's not. It's
Yeah.
not. But hopefully, if we continue to improve access to older games, a lot of us can go back and sometimes younger kids can appreciate it. I have a 9-year-old son, and I just pulled up NSO and showed him what the original Mario was like because he's used to just seeing like the Mario Odyssey type Mario,
Right.
and he ended up really loving Mario 3. He kept asking to go
It's
back
so
to it.
good. Yeah. It's
Yeah, I was like, thank you for having appreciation for this.
Yeah, that's one of the best games ever made. Definitely, Mario
Truly
3,
is.
Super Mario World as well. So I'm not surprised at all that he likes it because it's just like really, really good. And there's few Mario games that are as good. Like it's just like if you're the best in the genre, like the like all time and best in history, it's just like it's hard to beat. Of course, like
Mhm.
I would never want to make my own platformer game to
Right? Yeah.
compete with those. Like it's just like not
Can't.
possible. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I could never do it.
Yeah. So actually, that's a perfect, segue into probably the last question because my son and I get into this argument all the time. Who is the superior Mario brother?
What? Is that even a question? Like, like it's obviously Mario. Like, but I mean, I'm very fond of Luigi though. Like, Luigi's Mansion is amazing.
Mm,
I love him as a character, but it's like, who's the hero, right? So,
of course, yeah, Mario. No, I just joke about it because my son is all Mario, and I joke that I think Luigi's a superior Mario brother, mostly to get under his skin. But I like the underdog story. But yeah, we just kind of go at
the
it.
underdog
It's
story is great. Paper
yeah.
Mario. If you played the Thousand Year Door
Mhm.
for GameCube, there's a lot of stuff in that.
So great. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So that was the gauntlet. I got to know more about you, and it was a lot of fun. So let's get into maybe fast facts about your game, and then we'll just learn more about it. So you guys are about to release your debut game for your studio, Sulfur. I am going to cheat a little bit and kind of read off of what's on Steam because it's just already well worded. So it's described as a modern old school action adventure where you're tasked with outsmarting your enemies. You do find treasure, you upgrade, improve your weapons over time, harness your powers as you keep delving deeper and deeper to discover the secrets within Sulfur. There's definitely first person shooter mechanics, some RPG elements, correct? And you try to survive the battles, and I've heard there's some pretty tough combat in there, meant to be challenging, not tough, sorry.
Yeah, I mean it's challenging in the way that you die a lot, and when you die, you lose everything you're carrying with you. So there's a lot
Yeah, the
of
roguelite
risks
elements,
in,
yeah.
yeah, pushing onwards is risky. You don't just respawn and keep the stuff you found. So you have to extract out of there your items using your
Hmm.
amulet, or you can, if you like finish the whole area, if you complete the area, you will circle back and you will keep your stuff. um it's like hardcore in that sense, but I don't think it's too difficult. It's a roguelike, or the roguelite, in the sense you can
Hmm.
store your items. You don't start from scratch. You keep
Hmm.
your progress. So if you unlock an area, like a later biome, you can
Hmm.
still enter that biome. Even if you die, you don't start over
Hmm.
completely. So I would say there's definitely harder games out there, but people complain that it's too hard. And I actually I grabbed a screenshot of reviews of our demo, because we have had our demo for 6 months on Steam, and
Hmm.
now we can review demos. So people are reviewing our demo a bit. And then there was like one who said like it's too easy. You can use the starter gun and still kill the boss. And the one above it was like it's too hard. Like it's ridiculous. Like it's not even worth playing. Don't touch it. So I we're somewhere in between those
Hmm.
are true. Um, for some, it's not for everybody, but then again, a game for everybody is a game for nobody. So um,
I like that. I'm gonna steal that and use that phrase to tell people that. And it's true,
right, I
especially
stole
for
that. So I
okay.
stole that from Arrowhead, who made Magica, and now their
Mm.
later game Helldivers 1 and 2. So
Okay. All right, I got it. And I'm glad you took that screenshot to save it because, and we'll put a pin in it. I would like to revisit this later, but I do want to comment that, especially, I do feel like there are a couple of genres that are more, when I say divisive, not because in their nature they're divisive, perhaps maybe the gaming community is divisive, is roguelite or roguelikes and roguelites, because everyone's experience is going to be different. There's the get good crowd, and if you play one that's, I would say, accessible to all gamers, they'll complain it's too easy. And then maybe perhaps the unexperienced gamer that gets frustrated too easily without patience might complain it's too hard. But in the end, like if you got two that are side by side, it's more of, I hate to say it, more of the player's experience than actually what's wrong with the game.
yeah,
But we'll get to that. But I first want to circle back and say yes, this game is going to be releasing a week from recording, October 28th, and how I met Anton was at PAX West. I'm wearing my PAX West sweatshirt right now. This was my first year at PAX West. I've generally been at East because I live in the city or near the city that it's in. And your game was at the PAX Rising Showcase, which was fantastic. And every time I'd walk by it those 4 days, it's always been hammered with people. So I'm always like, oh, I'll come back another time. And Sulfur definitely was one of the games that stuck out. So, how was that PAX experience for you? Any memorable interactions or feedback? How was
yes,
PAX?
so many. It was great. I don't know if it was because PAX is always amazing, or if because we were part of PAX Rising, PAX Rising is amazing, or it's just like a combination of that and our game being in the very late stage, so it's like in a better state than ever before. Because I've been showing this game for 2 years at different
Mhm.
conferences and show halls and showcasing a lot. So I've seen people play the game, but it never was never that type of energy before. Like in I've had
Mm,
similar to that, but this was like people were really excited, and they were looking at our game like any other game. You know, it was not this
yes.
little indie game only. It was just like it felt like it gave our game like some type of legitimacy for being in PAX Rising, which I don't know. It was such a good crowd there. They were so excited about our game. It's also like where I guess our target demographic is very American. It's
Uh-huh.
like a lot of your big FPS and
Mm,
premium audience who are interested in premium games. So it's like stars align kind of, and
I
with like
see.
a target audience who are interested in the genre. It's a premium game. It's like the final stage kind of before we hit early access, so it's in a really good like representable state.
Huh.
So I think that helped a lot. And then I just think people are they paid money to go see look at games, which is
Yeah,
amazing. like
absolutely.
it is, they spend an hour with my game of all the games out there.
Yeah. And
Really
like
humbling.
I always get mixed feelings when I hear stuff like, oh, the game gives not the game, sorry, being at the event makes us like provides it with a little more legitimacy, which I understand the perspective and the feeling. I guess as a because I work as for Boss Rush, but I'm also a consumer, right? I'm a huge fan of indie games. Like that's honestly other than like a small handful of AAA titles that maybe I'm a little more faithful to, like Zelda, the Ghost of Tsushima, which will have the next Ghost sequel. But my bread and butter is indie games. But if you think about it too, I feel like, the indie devs and indie publishers do have a different kind of uphill battle to at least be seen because your games are honestly just as good and if quite frankly more polished than a lot of the AAA games that come out. So it's nice to have a platform like PAX and PAX Rising to be like, hey, these are these amazing games that, maybe you might not be able to see. And if you can experience them, you can find a gem. So
Nice. That's lovely to hear. I want to save that where you said our game is more polished than most AAA.
yeah,
Send it to my colleagues.
oh, absolutely. I sincerely mean it. So dialing it back a little bit, so you've been working on this game for a couple years. So how did you come to, founding your own game studio and then, I guess then leads to what's the inspiration to create Sulfur? Like, what's your origin story?
Yeah, so like we have a mixed kind of origin story. I worked my first job in the games industry was at Mojang. I worked in customer support
Hmm.
at Minecraft in 2011, 2012 there for a bit, and then I worked as an analyst for the Association of Swedish Game Developers. So I'm actually
Oh,
like
awesome.
I'm a social science major. I study psychology and
Mhm.
sociology and stuff like that, and but I always wanted to work in games, so I was looking for a job that would suit me. And then I ended up as an analyst for a bit. Worked at Mojang, and then I came back and I worked full 10 years for the trade association as kind of a project manager,
Mhm.
doing events and a lot of like business acceleration work. The past 5 years, the last 5 years were a lot of EU projects, so like
Mm.
kind of helping out startups and with mentorship and travel and trade shows and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, that's been my kind of I've been kind of this indie ambassador for the Swedish games industry
That's
for a
incredible. Yeah.
decade. Yeah, so and then
And great experience. Yeah.
I came to meet my co-founders from different events I went to as this like industry representative type person. And then I met Simon, who is our art director and the creative director of our game and our studio, and he's always had a lot of game ideas. And he used to when we were drinking, he used to say to me that we should quit our jobs and start a studio. He proposed that, and I was like, oh yeah, let's go. And I didn't think he was being serious. I thought he was just like being cathartic or whatever he was
Yeah.
working at, or like he was tired of something, whatever. But he was actually being serious. So in 2021, he picked up that. dialogue again with me, but sober, over Discord. We live in different places as well, so we just meet through the different events, and then we
Mhm.
picked up that conversation again in 2021, and he had two more people who he wanted to start the company with. So so I proposed a plan for that, and so we're all co-founders and shareholders in the company. I started like low key pitching the game
Mhm.
to different places. I still have my full time job as a lobbyist for the games industry, so I was like, I had to eventually tell my boss and be like, I have this thing now, just so you know. Like, and
Yeah.
if that's competing or whatever,
Yeah.
I'll resign. But he was cool with it, so I kept working on the game with my co-founders, and we found investment after 6 months, and then we actually got the money a year later. Our investor is Landfall Games.
Okay.
They made Cluster Truck and Totally Accurate Battle Simulator and Stick
Oh.
Fight and Rounds, and yeah, Content Warning was their latest game. A lethal company that
Mhm. Mhm.
so that went really well. I think they had 6 million downloads the first day.
That's
Um,
incredible. That's awesome. You love to hear that.
yeah, so they're like super successful, self-made indie kids who I came to like just to meet through events and stuff like that, and then we grew um, fond of each other, and then eventually like they invested in my company a long time later. I didn't actually wanna, because we're friends, right? We've been friends
Mhm.
for many years, and I didn't want to pitch to them because I was like, it would be super awkward if they
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
they
I
don't know.
gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. So, but he eventually, the CEO, started asking me like what we're looking for in terms of funding and stuff. So I ended up actually pitching for them for real, and then they ended up as our investor. But I was actually planning to pub a more like traditional publisher,
Mhm.
or like a more, yeah, um, like a more, I don't know, traditional route, and not speak
Mhm.
to your friends and ask for
Yeah.
their money. Which, yeah,
Yeah. It just happened to work out though, so that's great.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Now, as far as the idea behind Sulfur, was it just a collaborative, pool of ideas, or did someone say, "Hey, I want to make a roguelike?" Because you do have a balance of genres. Not that, honestly, we don't. I think we're way past the age where we have to pick like one or two
Right.
genres. Like you can easily blend them as long as the gameplay mechanics of, eventually and effectively work. But, was this kind of like a team idea, or did someone kind of get the ball rolling?
I think so we're four co-founders, right? And
Hmm.
then one of the guys, Felix, he wanted to make an FPS,
Okay.
um, and Simon, our art director, creative director, wanted to make a roguelike really bad. So there was like, oh, we could combine the two. There's not many games that do that.
Yeah.
Um, and then so it's kind of started as a dungeon crawler, going through dungeons, finding like guns, and basically just going deeper and deeper into caves. And then it kind of the scope grew as we were talking about what we would do with it. There was like more worlds, more enemies, bosses, how you can upgrade your guns. We decided to, so you can modify any gun with any attachment or any enchantment. So it's very scalable, or it's very, I would say, flexible
Hmm.
mechanically, which is a big scope for an indie game. But it was like one of
Yeah.
the early decisions we decided to do, is like focus on what will make the game be different every run, instead
Okay.
of focusing on one-offs. Like there could be a cool one-off story thing, or like one enormous boss once, but it won't be fun to replay that same boss forever or see that
Mhm.
story element forever. But we want a game that will be fun for hundreds of hours.
Mhm.
um, so that's what we started with, like the core aspect, the very gameplay core, um, and try to make that fun, and then just add things to it that would
Mhm.
just like mix it up and make it interesting to play.
I like that idea because I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't play a ton of roguelikes. I'm not really quite sure why. I don't have anything against them. I think just I naturally gravitate toward like an X amount of thing. But the few that I played and enjoyed, those are the ones that every run through is different. I know this is very cliche to say, so forgive me for saying it, but I played Dead Cells late. I just missed that
Great
train when it
game.
first came
Yeah.
out. But when they came out with the Castlevania DLC, I'm like, all right, now it's a perfect time to jump in. I'm like, wow, I had such a blast with that.
Yeah,
I know
it's
it's
great.
different
It's
setup,
so
but
good. No, but it's really good. Like that's a really good in roguelike. So that's one of the ones I look up to. Um, as well as like Slay the Spire.
yes,
Returnal is an amazing game if you're into shooters for the PS5. Like a triple A roguelike. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, people should check it out. Too few have played that game for sure.
Now, you said I believe Simon was the art director as well, or
Yeah,
creative
yeah.
director. So was he behind would you call it cell shaded? Forgive me if I'm not the best with industry terms,
No,
but your art
no, it's
style?
flat. So self
Flat.
shaded
Okay.
would mean that there's a 3D space and you
Oh, I
shade it
see.
like in an old cartoon, or like you shade it uh, to look a certain way. But our game's not shaded at all. It's just flat. So
Okay.
every enemy is just like flat shaded.
I
So flat
see.
design.
All right, thank you.
Um,
Yeah, I'll admit I don't claim to be an expert in that, but how did he come up with selecting that design? Because if I took a step back and never met you, never played your game, and I was thinking a first-person shooter, roguelike, I don't know, I would almost and dungeon crawler and bloody and whatever, I would have thought more, I don't know, I don't want to say realistic graphics. Maybe that's just because the way my brain has been trained with modern consoles. But when I saw the particular art style that was created for Sulfur, and then I stood and I watched people play it, I'm like, I really like it. Like this is
right.
really it's very eye catching
Yeah.
and very pleasing. So sorry, that was my really long roundabout of asking. Like, I wonder what came to that decision to choose that art style because for me in addition to gameplay, there's music or sound design and art design that like creates this
Mm.
trifecta here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, and that was the thing that drew me to actually want to make start this company with him as well,
Mm,
because he does this art, and that's like what he does. That his style, and he's been doing it for 10 years or more. He started making Flash games. I think it's in 2008 or something,
oh man.
2009.
Yeah.
Um, so that's his origin story, and so that's just what he does, and that
Mm,
brings limitations to what we can do and what looks good. But he's like no gradients, it should be
okay.
flat, unlit. So no, so it has that, and so it basically is like how he wants to do things, and
Mhm.
also I think it's very eye catching,
Yes.
and making an indie game in this decade, it's you have to have something unique about you, or that will make people remember your game.
Yes.
Or it has to be like just so good. Like I don't know, like Vampire Survivors is just like amazing. It's just so much fun to play, and they created a new genre. But I'm not sure that it's so easy to just create a new genre of games as
Mm,
an indie. So what we do is like it's actually we steal a lot of good design for that from games we look up to and games we played growing up. A lot of goofy humor and stupid jokes. A
mm,
bunch of Swedish and European food you make out of liver and kidneys and from enemies and stuff like that. So it's like what we find fun and what we think is funny, we add to the game, and then we just like as a baseline kind of core thing. The game should be fun to play.
yes.
It should be like tactile to shoot your guns, and reloads should look interesting
Mhm.
or satisfying, and just like we care about like the kind of core gameplay, like second to second, not in minute to minute, but even second to second gameplay, because that's what you do like more 90-95% of the time
Yeah.
you're shooting like enemies in the face, so
Hmm.
that should feel good. Like that's where we
Yeah.
started, and that's where I think a lot of games fail. Is like, what do you do 90% of the time? Well, that should feel good. Like that should
Yes.
be, it's interactive, so it doesn't have to feel good, but then the game has to be incredibly interesting. Like it doesn't feel good to sit at a table and play a board game. It's kind of a bad, at least to me. I'm not a good mammal, but I don't enjoy sitting at a table and like looking at a board. But I fucking love board games because they make so interesting dynamics, and they create so much for you. So I love playing board games, but like there's very few board games that are interesting when you move the pieces around. The feeling of that, or like the look of that, or what you create, is kind of uninteresting. It's just like it's just a representation of your tactics and stuff
Yeah.
and
Yep.
decisions. Well, in a video game, you can actually, with sound and animation and stuff, make that feel good. So that's what our games are about, I would say.
Yeah, I love that philosophy. It's essentially good immersion because for me, especially, you pay the money, you pay the time for your experience. I don't want to have like 90% of the time not having fun and live just for that 10% of whatever might be good
Right.
quality
Yeah.
because those games, they're not larger than the sum of their parts. So I love to hear that. Um, Now, it's funny that you mentioned like throwing in like some humor, especially like you just mentioned like a little bit of Swedish humor and stuff like that. So, how has the experience been marketing in different, I guess, sectors? Like, I don't know if you've done your circuit at maybe GDC in the European market versus the Americas versus maybe Japan. Like, I don't know, like what you've
Yeah.
done. And
Went to Japan too. Yeah.
oh, that's
Uh,
awesome. Like,
yeah.
how has it been kind of fun, but also challenging to adjust to a different audience?
Oh, it's definitely challenging, and it's definitely, you don't actually know. You know demographically how people are, I would say, or what they do. Like if you exhibit a game in Korea, they play free to play. They play a lot of mobile games, a lot of PC, not very much console. And they grew up with StarCraft. They grew up with free to play as a model, monetization models. So they're used to the design, the very grindy stuff, but they're also hard to get to. And China is different in that aspect as well. Japan has their own game culture completely. Still have arcades, so they of course they play a lot of PC, they play a lot of console, but they are also hard to reach in the sense that um, we don't use the same channels. It's not just about language, it's also about like platforms. So Twitch is banned in Korea, and Twitter is big in Japan, for example. So I made a Japanese Twitter account and started tweeting in Japanese about our game. Like stuff like that
That's cool.
uh, are very very different, and it takes time to learn, and it takes a lot of mistakes. So we still don't have, we barely have any wish lists or gamers in Korea. uh, and I haven't been there promoting the game, but I would assume, I just had like my assumption of Korea was that they were very PC focused and that they would love our game.
Mm,
They play a lot of like shooters, like Crossfire is Korean.
okay.
So anyway, our game blew up in China when I made a Bilibili account. So Bilibili is the Chinese YouTube. Um,
Ah, okay.
so so I started a Bilibili account after a few months of like, I had to like take a selfie with my passport and send it to the Chinese government and stuff. And they already have my biometric data with like fingerprints and shit, because I went there a few times.
Mhm.
I traveled there, and then they have my iris. Like, it's like, I don't care if
It's there.
a selfie with a passport is fine. So I had to do
Right.
that, and jump through a lot of hoops and send them like official documents with stamps on it, whatever. And got this account, and it's been doing really well on Bilibili. So it's fun to. I don't know any Chinese either. I deep fake myself in Chinese with the voiceover and stuff. Um,
Nice.
so I used some AI to make my voice be Chinese. So it sounds like me, but it's Chinese. Um,
That is cool.
and made some scripts and stuff and threw out there to try it. I was like, the worst thing that can happen is that it's cringe and people think it's cringe and they
And
will
then they move
comment
on.
that. But yeah, but we get like, every post I make, we get like 60 to 100 comments of people enjoying the game. Or I mean, a lot of time, sometimes they laugh at the bad translations I make. For example, roguelike, that in Chinese, if you pronounce it wrong, which
Mhm,
sometimes happen when I transcribe it to a
mhm,
AI, it becomes a pigeon, like a meat pigeon. So like,
mhm.
apparently, so like old people in China, like a few generations ago, they used to serve pigeon. Like,
Yeah.
if they didn't have
Yep.
anything to eat, they would shoot a pigeon, eat it. Um, so that like that sometimes I say that instead of roguelike, which is like rola or something. It's like I don't know Chinese, but I can fail in Chinese that I
Oh,
know.
that's a funny story. I'm half Chinese, and I'm losing the language because I have no one really to speak it to anymore. But I understand the complexities of it because when my mom and my nana were trying to teach me, they're like, "You say one word with a different inflection, and you can completely confuse or offend." So,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
I get
So,
it. It's funny.
but you do speak Mandarin then?
Mandarin, yes. But
Sweet.
like I said,
Okay.
unfortunately, I'm getting rusty, so I'm going to try and find a way, maybe with my son as like a family building activity to kind of try not to lose what's left of it. So,
Yeah. If you don't read, it might be hard to play Sulfur in Chinese. Otherwise, I could tell you like
yeah, I'll stick with
play Sulfur in Chinese with your son. But then I realized we have zero like voice acting. All the voice acting is just like meh, meh, stuff like that. So it won't help, unfortunately.
well,
But
when we get to the learn to read part, then we'll turn
yeah,
that
sure,
translation
sure.
on.
Then you can read all the weird like jokes we make, or like
Hmm.
cynical takes on human, civilization or whatever. it's,
Hmm.
pro- it's probably not the best place to start either. So
Oh yeah, maybe with my kid, maybe when I'm just learning myself.
yeah, yeah, maybe.
Nice. All right. Well, anything that you're, preparing last minute for launch? Is everything good to go? Like anything you want to just cover about the
Oh
launch of
yeah,
Sulfur itself?
yeah, so I'm sending out keys now for reviewers and influencers and content creators and all that press. So I'm doing a lot of that. I do all the biz dev stuff at our company. So I'm doing all of that right now. So I'll just get back to my inbox and, and doing
Hmm.
that. So for the people listening to this,
Yeah.
I don't know if is game already out when this episode is out.
That'll have to confirm with Corey about whether or not we can get this in prior to or not. So if you want to speak to however you prefer, then I'll just let him know what to kind of cut and promote. So it's up to you.
Okay, cool. Before would be awesome for us. That would be
Okay.
great. So the
Sure.
game is releasing October 28th in early access on Steam. So go and get it. But it's we're going to be working on it for 6 to 8 months. We have a roadmap we posted on social media and
Okay.
our Steam page. We will start with just fixing whatever is broken if there's anything that people have opinions about. Then we're going to add more biomes to the game, more bosses, more
Mm.
weapons. Um, right now, I'm working on a winter or Christmas update that hopefully will be fun.
Oh, that's going to be awesome. I'm glad you mentioned it. So, upon initial release, early access, how many biomes will we be able to encounter?
So the first one is caves. That's the one in the
Caves.
demo,
Yep.
the
Hmm.
one you probably saw at
Yep.
PAX. And then after that, if you finish that area, you'll get into like a town, like a shanty town, like a rundown European village.
Hmm.
Um, after that is sewers. Then there's a dungeon and a
Ooh.
castle. So and then there's the final boss of the early access, which is Lucia, the Saint Lucy. Uh,
Ooh. Okay.
which is a Swedish, very very weird Christmas tradition. The people like the like the high school like cheerleader, what is called queen, prom queen type
Oh, yep.
girl.
Hmm.
She
Hmm.
will be Lucia at Christmas if you're in Sweden. So the
Oh,
hottest
okay.
girl in school, or the popular girl, usually gets to be Lucia.
Ah,
Saint
okay.
Lucy is like a saint that was, I don't know. We celebrate part of Christmas for some reason in Sweden, so we sing carols and we
Hmm.
dress up in white gowns and walk down with like, it looks super sectish. Like it looks super weird to you, but I promise it's an old tradition. It's about Christianity and like, I don't know, sanctity of Christ, whatever. So, but we dress up in white gowns and walk with candles in our hands and sing songs, and that looks weird and creepy. So we made her into a boss in the game. So he's
Cool.
the final boss of the demo.
I'm glad you said that. So, will there be, well, clearly you just said the answer is yes, but what I mean is, will there be a lot of Swedish culture like sprinkled in there for us to learn about? And I only say that because I'm the kind of person where I will purposely gravitate towards games that are either steeped or take place in other cultures. Like Farewell North by Kyle Banks and put out by Moon Eye is in the Scottish Isles, and I really appreciate the music and the themes and the setting. Um, Angry Demon Studios, they had put out a game prior to Gory that was steeped in folklore. Like I
Yeah,
love
they're
stuff
Swedish
like that.
too. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So,
I know him. Yeah. So yeah, our game has a lot of that, but more into like I would say like pop culture or like
mm-hmm,
modern ways. Like we have a French hot dog that you probably never had, which is like a thing that is popular in Sweden, but it's
uh-huh,
actually from Belgium, but it's called a French hot dog. So
I
it's
love
like
it.
a baguette. It's like a fake baguette
Huh?
with a hot dog in it and sauces
Mm,
and stuff.
my
That's in the
goodness.
game. Stuff like that is
I'm gonna keep an
is
eye out for
things
it.
you
But
can
no,
find
seriously.
or cook in the game. So we have a lot of recipes, and we noticed. I came to learn that Americans prefer to put mayonnaise on their sandwiches instead of butter,
Oh, okay. Hmm.
which to me was like completely like mind boggling. I thought they were joking. I thought I was being trolled on Twitter. But so yeah, how you make a sandwich in our game is that you put butter on it, and
Hmm.
then you put whatever.
Yeah.
And
Other.
that people were like, why no mayonnaise? And I thought they were just like making. I thought they were joking, but they were being serious. Like, yeah, I'd put mayonnaise and then put turkey or whatever. But that's not how we make sandwiches in Europe. So
Mm.
that's how you get to learn how to cook with broth and butter and cheese.
Mm.
I don't know. We have mac and cheese too, so you can make
Nice.
that too.
Oh, I bet I hate to say it, but I bet your mac and cheese is better than the mac and cheese we have here. I'm a bad American because I've made sandwiches with both mayo and I made sandwiches that are butter based. I just
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm a glutton for food, so I have friends and family of all cultures, so I just eat everything, and anytime there's video games that have food in it too, I love it.
Yeah, we have a lot of food in our game. I think I made like 400 recipes.
Are you
Now.
serious?
Yeah.
Wow. That sounded like a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of stupid ways that we have set up our game, but it's modular enough for me to work in it without any
Mhm.
code. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well, I don't know. I think that's kind of, again, like you said, what makes a game stand out is when you have all these like extra little things like attention to detail. I mean, if I were to have an oddly specific one job in making a video game, I would love to make recipes, so why
yeah,
not?
yeah. Why not? Why not?
Nice. Excellent. Well, other than just, yeah, finally promoting the product, my last question that I like to ask, um, I think it's a little selfish because I am a primarily a physical collector. I understand there's certain platforms, especially, for example, like I feel Nintendo fans like physical media more than say Xbox fans. Not always the case, right? Generalization. But I like physical media.
Sure.
And especially when games come up with collector's edition, whether it's through your own fruition or through limited run, super rare, blah blah blah. If you had no cap on no budget and you could put your own dream Sulfur Collector's Edition, what would you put in it?
I would put like a big, nice art book. I would put
Yes.
plushies in it, plushies of our enemies,
Mhm.
and then we would put definitely we would make scratch and sniff cards. So Simon has always been wanting to make scratch and sniff cards. So
Mhm.
at least like once a week, he will ask me like, "Are they? Did you find a way to make scratch and sniff cards yet?" Uh, and we don't even have a physical release planned. But we do have. I've spoken to some limited run games and those different super rare games, fan gamer, I'm 8-bit,
Mm.
and places like that. But we haven't like decided. We haven't released the game in early access yet. So when
Oh,
we
yeah,
when
yeah.
we're closing in on 1.0, we're getting it to Switch, PlayStation, Xbox. I'd love to make a collector's edition, but those things can be really expensive. But scratch and sniff, I think we will do. I'd love to make a plushie as well. So
I have to ask, what would be an example of what we'd be smelling on the scratch and sniff?
I mean, you'd probably be cooking something. Like the
Okay,
first
it's the
time you
food base.
encounter
Okay.
pizza, you would
Oh,
probably
okay.
smell pizza. And then when you're in the sewers and you're like diving into the water, there probably will be a little hint of something you can scratch and smell
Oh my
there
goodness.
too. There's a lot of bad odors, which I'm afraid to do because I think if they smell that bad, people are just gonna throw away the card, and they're not gonna. I don't know. Maybe that's a good story too. But it's like if that's smelly, like it's not a collector's item anymore, or maybe it will be even a better collector's item. When I think about
See?
it, yeah. So never scratched it, never threw it away. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Oh
yeah,
man. All right. So everybody, you need to wish list and or purchase, well, and purchase and support Sulfur so I can eventually get my hands on a collector's edition that has a scratch and sniff on it, please. I need to
yeah.
make this
Yes,
happen.
yes. Please do, and please join our Discord as well. We have a Discord with a lot of fans on it. You can go to ourdiscord.com. I bought that domain, so you will be redirected to our Discord.
Perfect. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That's kind of coming towards wrapping up the end of our interview series. So, is there anything else other than Discord that you want to promote? And obviously, if there's any links, share them with me later, and we'll make sure they're in the podcast information.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Reddit. We started to get a lot of traffic on Reddit,
Mhm.
and I think those are the best places to. And of course, Steam. But I mean, that's where you buy the game. There's Steam forums as well. But yeah, follow us.
Oh, awesome! I know I'm excited for it. I got my eye on the calendar circled next week. I do have to beat a couple games before I get to it, though. I'm still working my way through Silent Hill 2 and Echoes of Wisdom, so I got to get that out of the way, and then I can.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Well, let
Cool.
me get through my laundry list of things that my boss told me I need to say. So hang tight and don't fall asleep, Anton. If you want to support the Boss Rush podcast and the Boss Rush Network, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/Boss Rush Network, a tier that's right for you, earning perks such as early ad-free access to this and other podcasts, exclusive access to spotlight interview threads, voting rights for our video game book club, and more. So that's patreon.com/Boss Rush Network. But as always, your listenership and viewership is always enough for us. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, hit that like button, all that jazz, leave a comment. We love checking out the comments, even if they're mean ones. Just kidding. If you're listening to us on podcast services like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it would mean a lot to us if you leave us a rating and review. Check out our merch on TeePublic with over 50 designs to represent your favorite shows. And check out all our content, reviews, articles, and more on bossrush.net. A lot of articles that I write are on there as well, including coverage of PAX West. So I don't know if I'll ever get used to all that outro stuff, but Anton, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed speaking with you again and kind of digging a bit deeper into Sulfur. And I wish you all the success in the world as your game launches next week.
Thank you so much, and
Yeah.
nice talking to you. All
Nice
right.
talking to you. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching and listening to this episode of the Boss Rush Spotlight podcast, the interview series for Boss Rush Network. Take care, everyone.
If you want to see how you can become a Patreon producer, head on over to patreon.com/BossRushNetwork. The Patreon producers for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Deering, Francisco Santillan, Matthew Keel, and Todd Oxtra. Thanks for your continued support of the Boss Rush Network.